As part of our Bible in a Year challenge, this week we come across a story in Luke chapter 8 where Jesus heals a woman. And it's an interesting story, both in the way that she is healed and what Jesus says about that. And as we work through this story, we may be tempted to think about the results and ask ourselves the question, how much faith do I really need? Let's go ahead and work through the story. We'll read it and then we'll attempt to answer the question. Luke chapter 8, I'm starting here in verse 42. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." So here's a story, a historical account of God working directly in the life of a woman. He heals the woman, he gives her what she wants, he gives her what she needs. And Jesus chalks up the effectiveness of the experience to her faith. He points out that the results, the supernatural results, the miraculous results, and her faith are absolutely linked. And we have to understand when we read through our Bibles, this is not the only place where that connection is made. In Luke chapter 18, verse 42, Jesus gives sight to a blind man and then says, "Receive your sight, your faith has healed you." Again, there seems to be a link between God working in people's lives miraculously, giving them what they need, a link between that and their faith. And these are not the only places in the Bible where this link is made. And so we read these historical accounts of God working miraculously in people's lives, God giving them what they need, God working directly with people, and we want God to be working with us in our lives as well. And so it's safe to conclude that we need faith every bit as much as these people did. It's a good conclusion to draw. But we can be tempted sometimes to fret over worrying about whether we have enough faith for God to effectively work in our lives. Yes, I have faith in God, but do I have enough faith for Him to work out this particular thing that I'm struggling with this week? I think that this is a pretty normal thing to worry about, or a pretty normal thing for people to struggle through. Most of us worry about this or ask this question from time to time. And if you are someone who has struggled or are struggling with this question, do I have enough faith? Then the answer that we're going to get to here today just might surprise you. All right, so let's work through first this biblical concept of what is enough faith, and then we'll circle back to our question as to whether we have enough. Now, to level set, the Bible does indeed talk from time to time about the amount of someone's faith, and it does at those times evaluate whether that is a good or a bad thing. Matthew chapter 8, a centurion asks Jesus to heal his servant. And so Jesus asks the centurion, "Okay, do you want me to go with you so I can heal him?" And the centurion says, No, that's not necessary. All you have to do, Jesus, is speak the word, and I know that my servant will be healed. And when he did that, when he said those things, Jesus commended the centurion for his faith. Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith." Conversely, also in Matthew chapter 8, when Jesus and his disciples were in a boat experiencing bad weather, the disciples got very scared, and Jesus chastised them with these famous words, "O ye of little faith." So the Bible does apparently from time to time quantify people's faith, and it makes a value judgment based on that quantity. But normally people's faith are not presented that way. It's actually very rare where the Bible will quantify someone's faith. Usually the Bible just talks about whether faith is present or absent, and that's all there is. Jesus said in Mark chapter 11 verse 23, Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Notice here, Jesus doesn't mention any requisite amount of faith that's needed to make this work. He simply announces the prerequisite of having faith in the first place. In Luke chapter 17, verse 6, we see something similar here when Jesus makes this point even more clearly, albeit a little less famously. Here he says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it will obey you. So apparently the key to answered prayers isn't the amount of faith that we have, it's whether faith is present at all. Jesus said only the tiniest of seeds is necessary. There's no sliding scale here. As Christians, we don't get different color belts depending on how much faith we have, although that would be pretty cool if we did. So getting back to our original question of how much faith do we need for God to actively be working with us in our lives, the answer seems to be we only need the tiniest of amounts. Now, that doesn't mean that we should be striving for the lowest common denominator or saying that the amount of faith we have is unimportant. Remember where we started. Jesus praised the centurion for his great faith, and he chastised his disciples for having very little faith. So we should always be working on increasing our faith. That's a good thing. But we don't ever have to worry that maybe we're just not good enough for God to answer our prayers. If a mustard seed of faith is enough to relocate the planting of a mulberry tree into the sea, then any tiny amount of faith is probably enough for God to help us out with whatever it is that we're struggling with at any given time. No matter how bad it is, your struggle is probably easier than trying to convince a tree to literally uproot itself and relocate to the ocean. And I think God has designed this process this way specifically because he knows us and he knows our struggles. And the times when we need him most are often the times when we're at our weakest. And often it's at those times when all we can scrounge up is just a mustard seed. And the Bible says that's good enough. Well, hope this has been helpful and I hope it's been interesting. And until next time, Lord willing, there is a next time. May God bless you and your family.